today's video is going to be a little guide on how to min-max supply. So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to basically talk about supply. So for the most part, I'm going to presume you know what supply, how it works, okay? What this video is going to talk about is what you can do about supply to make life easier. So basically, you can see each supply hub here has a maximum supply of 20. That is determined by the route back to the capital. In this case, you can see here, we've got number 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So you can see 2 equals 20. I think the lowest is 1, which is 15. So every time you go up a level of railroad, it goes up to a maximum of 35. And you can do it by basically just building railways from the rail supply hub that you want to maximize supply all the way back to the capital. And now if I let that finish and build all those railroads, that'll be the maximum capacity for this supply hub. And also be aware that each individual division has its own personal supply, so that determines what the number comes from. In this case, the supply for this is 0.48. So in this case, if we want to, we could make a division. So we'll spam in some XP. We'll find a division that has like 1 supply. So I'll deploy this division. So remember, this division has 1 supply. Let's just drop up a few more divisions to see if we can stress one of the supply hubs. And to just get an illustration of supply, the range of a supply hub, you just hover over here. You can see the areas that are in purple, the deep purple, that illustrates full supply. And when you move into the pinker areas, the supply dwindles significantly. So not only is it a sliding scale of in supply or out in supply based on the amount of supplies the division has, but it is also based upon distances from each individual supply hub. So the truth is behind it, I don't think you need to fully understand this system to get your head around it. I think the truth is if you know the basics, I think you can go from there. Here we go. So first of all now, there's a combination of 2 things. So this hub within this range has a capacity of 20 maximum. But get this, guys. Not only does it have a maximum capacity of 20, but also it has a capacity per individual province. Can you see this? It says supply remaining in this province 2.42. So not only is there a maximum capacity of the hub within this radius, but there's also a maximum capacity per individual province in the region. If you want to see the route from the capital to a supply hub, you just hover over the supply hub and you see that red area. It illustrates where the supply is coming from and to. So once again, same issue we've run into here. This hub has a maximum 15. Pretty good, right? But the truth behind it is as well, is it can't have the maximum supply because there's too many stacks in one province, because there's a maximum amount per province as well. If you hover over, it actually gives you a breakdown of where it was. So from individual supply hubs, from infrastructure, from the population, from victory points. So there's lots of elements there that make an impact there. Easy way, you could split them in half, and this one's still over capacity, so we split this one in half, and there we go. If you hover over, it says in purple there, remaining supply is 1.10. Remember, the supply for each one of these is almost 1, just over 1. So it gives you an idea of supply. So not only have you got to spread your divisions over different supply hubs, if you have overlapping supply hubs, my presumption would be that you would get more supply from that. But to top that off as well, you've even got individual supply per province as well. So if you're in a situation which quite commonly happened in Germany at the start of the game, like these areas here have low supply and these ones too, it might be that the distance from the supply hub might be a potential issue. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say that basically from the capital to this supply hub is a maximum of 3. How is it determined to be 3? Because the lowest amount is 1. So in this case, this is a 1 supply route. So in this case, what we're going to do is turn on IC and boost the supply for here up to 3. So right now, if you hover over the jerry can, you can see how much supply it's getting. Each division is getting 72% of its maximum supply. So therefore, if it was in combat, it would suffer from a penalty. Boom, boom. Build those supply hubs. Now it's going to be a maximum of 4, making it to 30. And you can see now it's changed slightly to a yellow color, meaning the maximum supply now is 77. So not only is it increasing the maximum supply capacity overall for the supply hub, it's also increasing the capacity per the province as well. So let's just max it out now. Boom, boom. So this is the maximum level 5. So it makes it to 35 for this supply hub. And this will make it now increase once again. So once again, just to recap, when you're increasing the railroads from the capital to a supply hub, you're increasing the maximum capacity per province, as well as the maximum capacity overall for this supply hub. That's a really good question. So someone just asked me in the chat, does infrastructure have an impact on it? I'm going to say a straight up yes. I'm going to say this will not affect the supply hub, but this will affect how much supply per province. So we're going to go from 3 to 5. So 2 levels of infrastructure. And remember, we're currently at 81% supply per division that is in an oversupplied province. So we'll unpause and it goes to 90%. So it has an impact. It's a small impact, but it has an actual impact. So I presume it's basically saying the roads, the infrastructure within this province that aren't railroads are having an actual factor. So the answer is yes, but it seems to make a less of an impact compared to the railroads from the capital region. So the question would always be like, how do we push this to this inevitable conclusion? So let's find ourselves Let's build a supply hub in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Boom. There we go. We got a supply hub here. Oh, and it's getting supplies by river. Oh, shit. I put it here thinking it wasn't going to be next to a railroad to get in supply. But you see this line here? This line indicates it's getting supply by river. And you follow the river down and it gets to here and connects to the railroads. Oh, shit. That's awesome. Let's find somewhere else to drop a hub. Somewhere in the absolute middle of nowhere. Boom. So this one says now, no connection from capital, meaning this is getting 0 supply. There is some supply within this region, but this is basically the supply that's being given from the victory point, the population, and the infrastructure. Okay, so right now, they are being supplied by a total amount of 9%. 9%. It keeps flickering between the two. Very, very low supply. So if these guys were going to go into combat, they would suffer some hefty penalties. So let's go down the checklist of things to try to reduce the burden of supply. And this will be like a really good illustrated way of doing it. So right now we're at 9% supply, okay? So the first thing and the easiest thing to do is look for a guy that has Logistic Wizard. So this guy here is an organizer, which is the prerequisite for logistics, but it reduces supply by 15%. Amazing. So this will give them, so that took it from 9 supply to 13. We're really basically scraping the barrel of supply here, guys. We're really scraping it. Anyway, let's take it another step further. What else can we increase the supply of this division? And we are going to go for good old logistics companies. Oh, who doesn't love logistics, right? And the total logistics companies maxed out gives a reduction of 40% of supply. 40%. Anyway, boom, done it. It's going to go from 12% to 23%. So basically, without you even realizing, by reducing the overall supply of a division, you are basically increasing its fighting capabilities inside of low supply regions. Oh, but guys, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. What else could we do? We could do the land doctrine for mass assault. You've got one here, 10%, and you've also got one here as well, vast offensives. And this will increase supply from 23% to 32%. Fighting capabilities of fighting in bumfuck nowhere, Siberia, guys. But are we done yet? No, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Or are we done yet? I'm trying to think, is there any of the numbers? Are there any other thing else that can reduce supply? Apart from transport planes. Don't say transport planes. What we could do is increase the infrastructure as well. That's another thing we could do. So we go from 1 to 5. And once again, we will learn from our experimentation that increases the amount of supplies within that region. Which is going to go from 32% to 91? What? So 2 things here that's very important is 1, there's no port here. Oh, there is. There's one here. Oh, it's not connected, so that doesn't apply. This one doesn't apply. Supply hubs distribute supply to nearby provinces. Their range and efficiency dependent on weather, ground conditions, infrastructure, railways, levels, and motorization. Railway levels and motorization. What about Vladivostok? Well, Vladivostok is getting a railway from the capital. So Vladivostok currently has a supply remaining of 4.58. See that blue number? So that tells you the amount of supply capacity for the province. But remember, there's 2 layers. There's the province level of supply, and there's the supply hub range of supply, which is this. 2 layers. So the supply here currently is an excess of 2.77. At the moment, supplying generally very good. It's surprising the one right next to Moscow, right next to the supply hub area, had worse supply than this. So unassign that guy. It's dropped from 2.2 to 2. Makes sense. Unassign this guy. It's going to drop from 2 to 1.5. Wow, that guy was making such an impact. Then we take off the logistics companies, which takes it from, wow, now we're in low supply. We're at 95%. We could jump off Deep Battle by doing this. Now it's going to go from bad supply of 91% to bad supply of 64. Wow, it makes such an impact. Wow, when you stack the modifiers of supply reduction, it has such an unbelievably big impact. It's huge. There's something else we've not taken into account too. We've also haven't taken into account motorization level, which my understanding was this just increases the range of the supply hub, but it actually doesn't. It also introduces extra supplies capacity per province level. So in this case, it's going to go from now 64% to 95%. Wow, motorization makes a big impact. And here's a little trick, guys. Are you ready for the tasty trick? Tasty trick. You don't have to individually change them at the hub. You can just change them here. So motorization 2 is 1, and Motorization 3 is 3. On pause now, it will automatically change them. So in this case, if it was over 2 supply hubs, this one will automatically change. Look, Motorized have arrived. Woo, Motorized, boys. So now, depending on where these divisions move, it will automatically update the supply hubs nearby that are affected by that supply to double Motorized. We're not done yet. That's not all. So one thing you could do is you could add extra supply hubs next to each other so they overlap each other. So my presumption would be it would have extra supply because you're doubling 2 hubs on top of each other. Let's see if that works. So right now they currently have low supply. So they currently have low supply of about, anyway, so they've got 52%. And if we double supply hub right next to each other, so there'll be 2 supply hubs overlapping each other, the impact is more supply. What if we do 3? More supply. So here's my little theory. Guys, put on your hats right now. Put on your hats. Thinking hats, okay? The reason why supply hubs are so unbelievably expensive is if you spam them back to back in a row, you can break the supply system, okay? Probably in the testing, Paradox realized that these were way too cheap and someone was cheesing the system, one of the testers, by placing too many back to back in a row. But guys, that's not all. Did you know that when you build a naval base, it also comes with a free supply hub? That's right. For a massive discount of a large amount, you can get a supply hub, a naval base, with a supply hub for free. So right now, the low supply, 52%. Oh no, low supply. How do we fix this situation? Build some ports, and we're now in full supply. That's so stupid. But remember, these are really dirty cheap. They're really, really, really cheap. Don't tell Paradox. They already know. They already know. They've doubled the cost of naval bases in the next beta patch. They're already aware of it. They're already aware. Not only are they making naval bases double the cost, but I believe they're making it, every time you increase the level of it, it costs an additional 100 as well. So it's like they're like exponentially more expensive the more you put. So they're already aware of it. They're already aware of it. But even if they double the cost, that's still cheaper than a supply hub. This is still cheaper than supply hub, so don't think about that. So we're low supply here once again, but we have an airport here. And at the moment, currently, transport planes are bugged. They're dropping off way too many supplies. So right now, don't forget, they're out of supply by 28 supply total. And we've got these boyos, and we're gonna do a air supply. There we go. So I just want you to logically think about this. They're basically grabbing supplies here, transporting them by horse to here, flying the plane with the supplies, and then dropping them back into the region. And that somehow, with the power of math, makes this region have more supply than it began with. Bad news, guys. Paradox are already aware of this one. So unfortunately, it's going to be dropping 1.3 supplies per plane down to 0.3 supplies. My honest opinion, that's still a large amount of supplies, okay? That's still a large amount of supply, even when they're going to nerf it in the next beta patch. Just giving you a heads up on that one. This goes without saying. You guys are probably already aware of this at a point, but normally, if you want to increase the supply capacity of a hub, for instance, this is a level 2 hub, because like 2, here you go, that shows where the supply is coming from. It's a level 2. Because that's the most convenient route. But what else you can do if you want to cheese it and you'd be like, oh, I don't want to build railways all the way to the capital. That's just not convenient. What you could do is just hit this button. And what that basically does increases the supplies. So now this is a level 5 from the capital all the way to this supply hub. Now the capacity of this supply hub goes up considerably. But once again, not only is it increasing the capacity of the supply hub, it's also increasing per province levels of supply. Both layers. 2 layers. Oh, another question people ask me quite often is, how do you build railways? The natural thing to do when you click on the railway construction button is to try and click on the hub. What you've got to do is you've got to click on the area next to the hub and then click where you want it, but don't click on the other hub you're taking it to as well. Here, for instance, don't click on the hub, you click on next to the hub, move your cursor where you want the railroad to go to, and then you drop it here. But don't click on the hub when you finish the railway line, click next to it. Boom, build a railway line right there. So guys, this is the question. How do you get good supply in like North Arctic Finland region? You basically just build hubs everywhere. There you go. Look at the supply here now. Oh, look at the supply go up, boys. Wow! The winter war is going to be a lot more easier, boys. Supply capacity of this region, 36. That's stupid. Oh, okay. So the biggest deal between supplying Japan's attacking China, the biggest deal, this is the biggie, biggie, isn't the overall supply. It's going to be shit, okay? Don't get me wrong, it's going to be shit, all right? But to take it the next step further, when you push into central China, the mainland part of China, the distance between the supply hubs is huge. So first of all, this region has no supply hubs. This region has no supply hubs. The earliest supply hub is this one. The hardest part is when you get to about here. In a multiplayer game, a smart player would build a supply hub here. I know it's expensive, but the problem is when you get to this point behind this big chunky river here, your supply lines are so unbelievably stretched. A Japanese player is going to really struggle to get these last few victory points in the West, and the only way they can logically do it is with a supply hub. You could up infrastructure, you could try transport planes. I know they're currently bugged at the minute, don't worry about that. But yeah, but that's a big factor. That's a really big factor. And also at the moment, also taking Stalingrad, which is a nightmare too, because between these two hubs here, look at the range. And there's no hubs here either in the center. So you can't push through the center and try and snip this one. And I have tried, because you get bogged down in the center because there's no supply. So you either push southwards and try and whip around, but even here, there's not much supply either. So you have to take a big leap for Stalingrad. All right, we're done now. That's the end of my advanced supply tutorial.